Does this ever happen to you?
Stupid squirrel. Dang it, I lost a $50 arrow.
Well, I can tell you it's happened to me too. And I think I may have found a solution.
So these arrows here, these consistent arrows, they're made overseas in China. From the research that I found, only Easton Arrows actually makes their shafts here in the United States. And the majority of arrows are made in Southeast Asia. And so, really, I don't know what your guys' leanings are. If you're someone that doesn't want to buy Chinese products, that's up to you. But for a lot of people that are looking for an affordable option, these might just be a good choice. These here are a 200 spine arrow, and I put the consistent arrows insert on. It was a 100 grain brass insert that came with it, and I put a jacket sleeve that goes over the shaft that was also supplied by Consistent Arrows. Looking forward to trying these out and seeing how they do. These also have Consistent Arrows nocks on them. This is a lighted knock. The mechanism for turning these on and off is somewhat similar to Nocturnal. The only difference is if you can see, there's a little brass button there, and that brass button is what helps you activate or deactivate the plunger. So if I push down on this, it turns on, and from my experience, these have been very bright. And it's string activated, so when the plunger goes down, the string pushes the plunger down, very similar to a Nocturnal arrow. And to turn it off, it requires no tools. You just lift up on that brass button and it'll shut off. All right, so down to the specs. Here's the 200 spine shafts, and I went through the dozen and I weighed all 12 of them. And if you want to look at all 12, you can pause the video and take a look at all the weights. But our average weight was 316.35 grains at 29 inches. This came out to 10.91 grains per inch, and the extreme spread was 2 grains total. So the heaviest shaft to the lightest shaft had a 2 grain difference. In my opinion, great consistency. And we'll flip the page and look at the 150 spines. Here's the 150 spine arrows. Again, weighed an entire dozen. And if you want to take a look at what all the weights were, you can. But the average was 379.58 grains at 29 inches. That was 13.09 grains per inch. And the extreme spread was 1.4 grains. So part of my dilemma with the equipment I use is finding arrows that are stiff enough to tune out of my bow. I'm shooting a 90-pound APA King Cobra. Yes, Cameron Haynes and Josh Bomar and Joe Rogan are not the only ones that shoot 90 pounds. Finding an arrow that's stiff enough can be a challenge, especially when I'm a person that lies on the heavy arrow side of things. I like to shoot heavy arrows, and part of the reason why I'm shooting 90 pounds is so that I can shoot heavy arrows fast. These here are the 200 spines. They do quite well. I've shot plenty of 200 spine arrows in the past, and for my normal hunting setup, 200 spine is plenty stiff to tune. However, there are times where I like to tinker, I like to play around, and I like to put lots of weight up front. And when I have a 180 grain Ethics insert in my 200 spine arrows, I can't really get more than a 200 grain point to tune. And there's times where I like to use a 300, and in the past I've used up to a 500 grain point, and it just simply won't tune out of a 90-pound bow. So when I got in contact with Michael, I let him know what I had going on, what my setup was, and I asked him, because these were not listed on the website, hey, do you sell a 200 spine arrow? He said yes, but I don't make very many of them because they're not very high demand. I said, well, could you make me some? He said, absolutely, sure, can do. And so then my curiosity was piqued, and I said, is there any way you can make a 150 spine arrow? And Michael said, yes, I can make a 150 spine arrow. And I asked him, could you go ahead and do that? And he said, sure thing. So he made me some custom 150 spine arrows. Very similar setup. These ones here, I did not use his inserts, although I could have. It was a 100 grain hit style insert that came with these as well, but he did not have any sleeves. And plus I wanted to play around with an insert system that I'm familiar and that I like. And so I put a 220 grain Ethics outsert system. It's got a stainless steel jacket and a long stainless steel insert that goes in there. It's a very durable design, and this will help me out for my heavy arrow setup. For these, I have a 300 grain point, 220 grain insert. There's 520 grains up front, and they tune like a dream. Okay, so we're going to go back to 60 yards. We're going to see how these 200 spine arrows with the standard insert and the 300 grain point fly. We'll shoot 2 broadheads and 1 field point. Again, this is a 300 grain head, and I'm using a 3-blade VPA. All right, so here are our 3 shots at 60. Here's number 1, 2, and 3. And they are within, I don't know, 3.5, 4 inches from each other. So good group. Again, this is 2 broadheads, 1 field point. Let's try the 150 spines. Okay, so I've got 2 150 spine arrows made up with the 220 grain Ethics insert. Again, we're shooting a 300 grain field point and a 300 grain VPA 3-blade broadhead. And we'll go back to 60 yards and see how they fly. Well, it's a good thing I shot the broadhead first, because those 2 arrows are touching. So last up is going to be the durability test. And I'm going to be shooting that chunk of concrete right there. First, I'm going to use a 150 spine arrow with the Ethics outsert system. And we'll see if it holds up to the concrete. And then I made a 200 spine arrow with a 200 grain Ethics outsert. And it's got a 200 grain point to so that it tunes similar to the 100 grain inserts with the 300 grain point. We're going to go back to about 15 yards. We're going to shoot the concrete blocks and see if these arrow shafts can hold up. So, how did the arrows fare against the concrete? Well, there's the 200 spine shaft, and here is the 150. As you can see, the 150 got split just a little bit, and yeah, so they buckled, but the arrow shafts, or the arrows, held together with these Ethics inserts, and overall, I'm pretty happy with that. I did shoot a cinder block the other night with these when I was playing around, and the 150 spine did survive the cinder block. The reason why I think these split here is because a cinder block's got a little more give than that concrete block that I shot. Also, that concrete block was very hard, fibrous concrete. So take it for what it is, but keep in mind animals are not made of concrete, and there's no animal with a bone density on earth that's going to be anywhere near the hardness of concrete. And so if they did that well in shooting a concrete wall, basically, we can take confidence in the fact that shooting a animal shoulder blade or what have you, the arrows will hold up. So my question to you all is, what do you think of these arrows by Consistent Arrows? For me personally, I'm looking forward to using them. I don't see a reason why these would be inferior to anything else I'm using quality wise. We saw that they shot well. They're at an amazing price point. And for those of you that are trying to lower your archery budget, for those of you getting into archery or that just have a hard time justifying archery because of the cost, this might help you get into the sport. And I believe you should be able to do everything with these arrows as you could with any of the top name brand arrows. But if this is something that you would be interested in ordering, go to Facebook, find the Consistent Arrows page, and place an order there. The owner's name again is Michael Yu. Let me know what you all think of these arrows in the comments below. And if you have any experience with these, I'd love for you to share those with me as well. But for now, that's it. So thank you for watching and have a good one.